Welcome back to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure to like, subscribe, and support our new movement by putting Let's Go Viral in the comments section. But if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. But without further ado, here are your hosts, Nicely Chunga Benny and Greg King.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about our top 10 point guards heading into this year's 2022 NBA season. But before we hop into all that, you know we got to give a quick shout out to a subscriber today, as always. And today, it's going to be Fran Blank. Thank you so much for like, comment, subscribing, turn on post notification, and showing so much love and support towards our YouTube channel and our podcast overall. We greatly appreciate it. Now, without further ado, let's hop straight into this episode because this list, it might be a little bit controversial. I know a lot of people, they were going at us a little bit about our top 10 players in the NBA list. You know, some people don't agree with LeBron being so high. Some people don't agree with AD being so low. But, you know, ultimately, we're just here to give you guys facts, analyze, NBA basketball and all that good stuff. But at number 10, Greg, who do you have for your list on your top 10 point guards in the NBA?
So I got the young rising star, De'Aaron Fox. And I think De'Aaron Fox, he's in a tough situation. The Kings are not really that good on the defensive side. The coaching problems with Luke Walton and stuff like that. But this guy continues to produce. Last year, he averaged 25, 7, 3 rebounds, 47% from the field, 32% from the three-point line. He hit a career high in threes, 103 for the season. He was 15th in the league in points per game, 11th in steals per game, 9th in assists, and these splits are crazy. Good to see. We're seeing a lot of improvement out of him, and he's going to continue to grow. But the downside for him is obviously the shooting and scoring in different areas and not really leading his team to the playoffs. I know at the beginning of the season last year, they started off really good. He had him in the 8th or 9th seed, but it kind of tailed off with the injuries and sometimes of his poor, inconsistent play. So with that, I have him at number 10.
Yeah, for number 10, I'm going to actually go with Ben Simmons, even though I have De'Aaron Fox as an honorable mention. Him going along with guys like LaMelo Ball, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, they're outside of my top 10. But at number 10, I'm going to go with Ben Simmons. You know, he had a pretty disappointing year overall, but it just exploded in the postseason. I mean, this guy, some of it had to do with, how he was being misutilized. He was featured a lot less in the offense. Ever since his rookie year, his usage rate has been going down and down. His ball handling duties were revoked. And, he was historically bad from the free throw line this postseason. Second worst all time behind Ben Wallace at 34%. And, this is a guy that he really lacked a lot of confidence offensively. And defensively, he was still pretty good, but he's still an all-star caliber player, still a guy that's able to, be a double-double machine, and he was a defensive player of the year candidate. So I think all that being said, Ben Simmons is still, despite, a bad season, still a top 10 point guard in the NBA, if you ask me. But at number 9, Greg, let us know who you have.
I got Jamal Murray, and some people, I don't know why, casual fans, even NBA fans might be saying this, he's overrated. I don't think that at all. I think a guy who's a rookie of the year, he was the rookie of the year, incredible in the bubble, incredible in the playoffs this year. But as far as the season stats, 19, 7, 4, 44% from the field, 30% from the three-point line. Everybody knows that Ja is struggling with his shooting, and I think he can get better at that, but you can't discredit his athleticism, his leadership, his IQ. And one thing that pops out to me when I watch him is his feel of the game, the way he gets his teammates involved, the way he carries himself, the poise and the pace that he plays with, his acrobatic finishes around the rim, his highlight reel ability, just gets everybody involved and has the ability to lead, led the Memphis to the playoffs, and in my opinion, in the playing game, outperformed Steph Curry in that play-in tournament and ultimately got him in the playoffs. And then with the playoffs against Utah this year, he averaged 38, 4 rebounds, 48% from the field, 32% from the three-point line. Just an incredible performance. Just not enough to get it done, but I think the downside with Ja is obviously the shooting and just him on the defensive end. But other than that, I think Ja will be a rising star going forward in this league as a point guard.
Yeah, Jamal Murray, definitely a top 10 point guard in the NBA, but I got him a little bit higher on my list. But at number 9, I'm going to go with Jrue Holiday out of Milwaukee. Now, this is a guy, he was vital to, Milwaukee's postseason success this year. I mean, he's really most impactful defensively, as you guys may know. He was an All-NBA defensive team member this year, and he actually offensively shot a career high from 3 with 39%. But this is a guy, he really improved the decision-making from the point guard position for the Milwaukee Bucks, and he was somebody that, despite him struggling offensively in the postseason, he did come up big in Game 6 and Game 7 defensively, combining with, 7 steals in both of those games and ultimately leading the Milwaukee Bucks or helping them get get to an NBA title for the first time in over 50 years. So Jrue Holiday, definitely a top 10 point guard in the NBA if you ask me. But at number 8, Greg, let us know who you have.
Some people at this spot might have Jrue Holiday or Ben Simmons, someone of that caliber, but I got a guy in Jamal Murray. And I think Jamal Murray, who came into the league as a shooting guard, and they played him at shooting guard, then he transitioned to point guard. And this is where he could really open up his game, and it has showed through his stats. This year he averaged 4 and 4, 47% from the field, 40% from the three-point line. This is a 3-level scorer, a guy who's great coming off the pick and roll with Jokic and really good at getting his teammates involved. I would like to see his assist numbers a little bit higher, but they run the playmaking duties through Jokic, obviously. But Jamal Murray just gets it done. I think what we saw in the bubble, he has a lot of potential and shows a lot of growth through the 4 or 5 years that he's been in the league. And in the bubble in 2020, he averaged 26, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 50% from the field, 45% from the three-point line, and 59% effective field goal percentage in the bubble. Like, he just played really good. Had a great series against Utah, averaged 30 in that series, and showed up in the Clippers series as well, helped dethrone them. And he was the main number one option that the Clippers focused on, and he showed up. So I have to give credit to Jamal Murray. And when he comes back from this injury, we will see a lot of him, and hopefully he'll lead him to the playoffs again.
Yeah, I think Jamal Murray's a great player, but I left him outside of my top 10 just because I felt like, despite him having a pretty decent season before his torn ACL, the Denver Nuggets, they were struggling for the better half of the year before, ultimately him going down with that injury. But at number 8, I'm going to go with Russell Westbrook. This is a guy that averaged a triple-double 4 of the last 5 seasons. He has 3 seasons with 700-plus rebounds, which is actually the most in NBA history by a 6'3" player. And we already know he's a former MVP. This is a guy that does a good job of just leading his team despite them being not all that appealing offensively from that dynamic. And he was able to showcase that ability by displaying that he could take the Washington Wizards to the postseason for the first time in a few years. But this is a guy, he was really clutch this last season. He led the NBA in makes in the final 2 minutes a game, shot 40% in those scenarios as well, and he led the NBA in assists per game with 11.7. So Russell Westbrook, definitely a top 8 point guard in the NBA if you ask me. But Greg, at number 7, let us know who you have.
I got Russell Westbrook, and some people might think it's too low, but I'm gonna break it down for you guys. Obviously, he averaged a triple-double on 43% field goals from the field and 31% from the three-point line. Russell really carried this Washington Wizards alongside Bradley Beal. But the thing with Russell is the inconsistencies. And actually, his last 23 games of the regular season wasn't that bad. He really led them to the playoffs. Those last 23 games, he averaged 23, 14, 13 and a half rebounds, 45% from the field and 32% from the three-point line. And they went 17-6 in that span. So he really helped them get into the playoffs and dethrone the Pacers in the playing game. But it's really the playoffs this year is the reason why I have him so low on this list. His stats were a triple-double, obviously, but it's the shooting splits and the turnovers. 4.2 turnovers from a point guard, especially a veteran like Russell Westbrook, but he shot 33% from the field and 25% from the three-point line. I think Russell going into the Lakers, he has a lot to prove. I think he needs to come out and show that he can't be inefficient, and you don't have to play 100 miles an hour every possession. So I think if Russell can come in and know his role and lead the Lakers and do the thing that he needs to do to this group, I think he can arguably be a top 5 point guard going into after next season.
Yeah, at number 7, I'm gonna actually go with Ja Morant. Now, Ja Morant, I would say is a better decision maker than Russell Westbrook at this point in his career. He's probably a little bit less turnover prone. I haven't really looked at the statistics and compare them between the two. But Ja Morant, easily the most athletic point guard in the entire NBA. This is a guy that he's a highlight reel in transition. And, he, in the half court set, really does a good job of operating in the pick and roll. He maneuvers well through and throughout the lane, facilitates at a pretty high level, and he's a relentless penetrator. This is a guy that plays with his head above the rim. And he also displayed this in the playing tournament this past season, where he took down Steph Curry and put up 35 points and ultimately led the Grizzlies to their first postseason appearance since 2015, when they had Zach Randolph, Marc Gasol, and Mike Conley. But obviously Ja Morant, he does have a few deficiencies within his game. Definitely needs to improve as a jump shooter and a floor spacer if he wants to crack into that top 5 at the point guard position. Yeah. But Ja Morant, definitely a top 7 point guard in the NBA if you ask me. But at number 6, who do you have, Greg?
At number 6, I got to shout out Ice Trey Young. I mean, the season that he had, especially with critics and media personality, not really thinking the Hawks were really going to do something this year. And Trey Young just went out and balled. He averaged 25, 9, 3 boards, 43% from the field, 34% from the 3-point line. This guy who can stretch it out, has range, but really great in the pick and roll. Great floater, can finish, can dish, has a feel when coming off the pick and roll. Just great, can get everybody involved. Has a high IQ. He had 28 double-doubles this year. That's very impressive. He led his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and for the first time, his playoff numbers were good too for the first time. 28, 9, and 2. So I continue to see Trey Young and to be a great rising star going forward in this league as a point guard.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big fan of Trey Young, but I got him a little bit higher on my list. But at number 6, I'm going to go with Chris Paul, the veteran out of Phoenix. Obviously, I would say Chris Paul, he's probably the most efficient point guard from all dynamics of the game, in my opinion. He essentially had a 50-40-90 season last year. I mean, we already know what he's capable of doing. This is a guy that, excels when it comes to, creating, specifically in the pick and roll. You saw the display of, the snake dribbles and the mid-range jump shots that he was able to knock down all postseason last year. And, this is a guy, he really sees plays before they fully develop. Not too many players in the NBA have that capability, unlike, guys like LeBron James, Luka Doncic, point guards like that. But obviously, Chris Paul, he's got a high IQ, and I think defensively, he is underappreciated, especially when it comes to, the eye of casual NBA fans. Now, the committee and everybody, they understand that he does his due diligence on that side of the basketball. He's got 9 All-NBA team appearances. So Chris Paul, besides him, coming up short in the postseason time and time again, because he is the only player in NBA history to blow 4 2-0 series leads, I definitely have Chris Paul as a top point guard heading into the NBA, especially next year. But at number 5, Greg, who do you have?
I got to shout out Kyrie. Kyrie had one hell of a season. I mean, a 50-40-90 club, all-star season. The downside of Kyrie is that, he just needs to take care of himself off the court. But if this guy locks in on the court, he's going to be one of your best players. He can be a great number 2 option. He averaged 26, 6, 4, 50% from the field, 40% from the 3-point line, and 92% from the free throw line. This guy just got it done. And the downside is that he got injured in the playoffs, but I'm looking to see Kyrie to bounce back and really help this team bring a title to Brooklyn next year.
Right, I agree with that 100%. But yeah, at number 5, I'm actually going to go with Trey Young out of Atlanta. Now, we already know Trey Young, he's fresh off an Eastern Conference Finals appearance, surprisingly. This is a guy that, he's capable of knocking down a 30-footer. He's got extended range from outside. Pretty much a really great on-ball presence for the most part. This is a guy that, he makes you pick your poison defensively. He's unguardable in the pick and roll. He's a great decision maker when it comes to, getting below the free throw line. And then we talked about how good he is from shooting outside. Could be a little bit better when it comes to, efficiency-wise, but ultimately his shot selection kind of, makes those numbers a little bit skewed. But ultimately, Trey Young, he was the second best point guard in the NBA when it comes to assist numbers with 9.4. Shows the ability to create when ran off the 3-point line. And, this is a guy that can score with the best of them. He ultimately was able to knock down the number 1 defense in the entire postseason last year, and he beat the number 1 team in the Eastern Conference, leading his Atlanta Hawks to a Eastern Conference Finals appearance for the first time in over 50 years. So Trey Young, definitely a top 5 point guard in the NBA, if you ask me. But at number 4, Greg, let us know who you have.
I have to put CP3. I mean, this guy just continues. Every time he joins a team, he makes them better. He makes everybody on the court better. So for that reason, I have to put him at number 4, and he showed it. He was all-star season, 5th in MVP voting, led the Suns in the 2nd seed in the West, and also led them to the finals. I mean, just incredible. A guy who's great off the pick and roll, great playmaking ability, a great veteran leadership, has high basketball IQ, and at 36, and he's still at the top of his game. I think this guy really showed us that he's valuable, but he just has them injuries. He has to take care of his body, but what I saw in the finals, his stats weren't even that bad. 21, 8, and 55% from the field, 52% from the 3-point line. Yes, he had his moments, but I think Chris Paul is still a top 4 point guard in this league who brings a lot of value to teams going forward.
Yeah, at number 4, I'm going to actually go with Kyrie Irving out of Brooklyn. Now, Kyrie, he's coming off his best offensive season in his entire NBA career. This is a guy that made All-NBA second team. And, he showcases the ability to, be able to get his shot off in any variety of ways. He's a tremendous player in isolation. He's the best third option in the entire NBA. One of the best finishers around the rim. And, this is a guy that's got the ability to hit shots late in the clock. He's a 3-level scorer, excels in tough shot making. And he's one of those break you down type of point guards. Probably got the best handles in NBA history over guys like Allen Iverson. And, he's unfazed by any defensive coverage or any defender. He's able to, just attack and get get whatever he wants on the floor, and I feel like that's the reason why Kyrie Irving is a top 4 point guard in the NBA. But at number 3, Greg, let us know who you have there.
I got Damian Lillard. He had an incredible season. He was 7th in MVP voting. He just put up numbers. I mean, he's also a leader in clutch shooting with 4 points per game, 51% from the field and 39% from the 3-point line. He had a multiple 50-point games this season, and he carried the Trailblazers to the playoffs and really did his thing. But the thing with Dame is, like, sometimes he's inconsistent in the playoffs. His playmaking ability is not all that sometimes, and his defense. I mean, he's a really good player. He can put up numbers, but when it comes to the playoffs, it's just not enough to really edge his team over and lead them to the finals. So for that reason, I think Dame will continue to be a great point guard. He just got to get out of Portland nicely.
Right. I think Damian Lillard, he was one of those guys that was considered a top 2 point guard in the NBA before Luka Doncic appeared. But obviously Damian Lillard, he's second in PR among point guards. So he's one of the most efficient players from that dynamic. He's one of 2 point guards with a true shooting percentage of 60%. I mean, he's shooting the ball phenomenally. Him going along with Steph Curry. But he's one of the best one-on-one scorers in the entire NBA. Despite his position, he's 3rd in the NBA when it comes to scoring points per game, and he averaged 34, 10, and 4 in the postseason. And this is a guy that's got the ability, carry the offensive load for his lackluster roster. But obviously, his defensive struggles and his inconsistencies at time led him to not be a top 2 point guard in the NBA no longer. But yeah, at number 3, I got to go with Damian Lillard. But at number 2, Greg, let us know who you have there.
I got Luka, and I love Luka. Like I said, Luka has a lot of LeBron qualities in him, and that's why I love him so much. I mean, he was 6 in points per game in the NBA, 4th in assists in the NBA, and had the 4th most triple doubles in the NBA this season. And it also was the All-Star season, led his team to the playoffs, and just couldn't get it done. But he did his part. He had a career high averaging in the playoffs, 35 points, 10 assists, 7 rebounds, 49% from the field, and 40% from the 3-point line. And this is going against a good Clippers team who has Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, a great defensive team. They try to throw different looks at him. He just knocked down clutch shots, and I saw it time and time again. But the thing with Luka, he just has to, continue to be a consistent shooter, but also, be more. He can play make as well, but also it's just tough. He's in a tough situation with guys who don't really score that much. So he has to be a better leader on the floor and get everybody else involved and really set him apart to be the best point guard in the league. That he doesn't have the same qualities that Steph is doing right now. So for that reason, I have Luka at number 2.
Yeah, Luka at number 2 for me as well. I mean, I think Luka Doncic, he's one of those guys that was kind of in the same boat as Trey Young. Like, obviously, you have some decent guys around you in your roster and everything, but I feel like until Luka Doncic learns to trust his teammates a little bit more, like Trey Young did this offseason, or this postseason, excuse me, I think that's when Luka Doncic will really be able to unveil what he's really capable of. But I mean, obviously, Luka, he's the best young talent in the NBA, if you ask me. Plays with great pace. He's really patient offensively. This is a guy that can score the basketball in a variety of ways, despite, the lack of athleticism. Really does a good job of not getting sped up. And he's one of those guys that can dismantle any caliber defender, whether it's Patrick Beverley, a Paul George, even maybe an Anthony Davis. This is a guy that, in Luka Doncic, he's able to get whatever he wants offensively. He finds ways to also, keep Dallas in games, whether they're playing one of the best teams in the NBA or, they're playing a tough team like the Los Angeles Clippers in the postseason. But I mean, what I like about him the most, he's really good when it comes to analyzing the defense. Does a really good job of playmaking. One of the best players in the NBA when it comes to offhanded passes and everything. And he's got the upside to be a top 10 player all time. So Luka Doncic is definitely a top 2 point guard in the NBA. But at number 1, I think we all know who's going to be on this list right here.
Yeah, Steph Curry for sure. Career high, won the scoring title this year, made 337 threes this season, finished 3rd in MVP voting. His splits for the season was 32 points, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 48% from the field, 42% from the 3-point line, and 60% effective field goal percentage. This guy was, with the talent that he had on his roster, to carry them to the playing game. I know they didn't make it to the playoffs, but Steph Curry, his poise and the way he's changing the game and evoluting the game is just incredible at the point guard position. He's so much range. He can finish. He has great handles, gets his teammates involved, and his motor just never stops. And I think this guy can continue to be a top 2 point guard. The best point guard in the league going for the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, he's just unstoppable. It's hard to guard him. He has a crafty move. He just gets it done, and I was impressed with what I saw this year. It definitely made the NBA entertaining for sure.
Yeah, obviously Steph Curry's number one on the list. I mean, he's the best shooter all time. I mean, he's effective both on and off ball. Does a really good job, being a guy that read and reacts to what the defense is giving him off ball specifically. Him and Draymond, they're able to, connect on a lot of three-pointers whenever the defense is, doing a good job of locking up the rest of those guys. And, they're in kind of scramble mode. I think that's when Steph Curry's probably at his best, specifically when it comes to, just being entertaining. But I mean, this is a guy that his presence alone gives his teammates a lot of opportunities to score the basketball. I mean, you saw Toscano Anderson be able to benefit from this last year, along with guys like Jordan Poole, James Wiseman, Andrew Wiggins as well. But I mean, Steph Curry, he's one of those guys that you have to be locked in and, attentive about defensively. And, his teammates are able to benefit from this. And, his overall play, it just trickles down to, the rest of the team. He's able to, despite, them players on the Golden State Warriors not being all that talented, he was still able to nearly get them into the postseason last year. And I think this is a guy that's also an underrated playmaker. You see how he's able to operate whenever he's getting DHOs and, a lot of handoff actions and things of that nature, able to create for guys off ball, in a variety of ways. But yeah, Steph Curry, definitely the best point guard in the NBA heading into next year. But let us know who you guys have for your top 10 point guards in the NBA heading into the 2022 NBA season. We greatly appreciate you guys tuning in to another episode of the Ball Fake Podcast. It's now episode 61. If you're new to our YouTube channel, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notification. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure to give us a 5-star rating and a nice review. But besides that, it's your boy Nicey Chungabini. I'm here with my co-host Greg King, and we out.
We out.